Good evening, gamers, and welcome back to Vampire the Masquerade Night Road. We're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. Hopefully, it hasn't been too long since the last time I hopped on here. I can only hope that you all remember what exactly is going on. So, Alec, just before I started streaming, I went ahead and made sure that Teddy was nice and sated with blood. Alexander provides us with a graphic artist who has grown addicted to the kiss. You're soon sated. Where to tonight? I head to the car meetup to see Dove. These midnight motor meets happen every night all over the place, and it looks like this one is happening tonight just south of downtown in the big parking lot of a suspiciously run-down Costco that's been partially converted to a spirit Halloween store. You circle the parking lot first just to see what you're getting into. The crowd looks a little tougher than at a Cars and Coffee event. You see tuners, rods, old muscle cars, a few imported 90s sports cars. Someone is selling electronic and audio equipment of dubious legality out of his trunk. Another guy is hawking his comics and zines. The centerpiece is a gleaming black Mercedes-Benz 300 SL, the classic with the gull wing doors. You force yourself not to stare. No one pays attention to your Integra. You don't see Dove's Chrysler in the parking lot, but as you scan the crowds for trouble, you look up and spot a shadow on an unfinished dirt road that overlooks the parking lot. You roll your Integra up the slope and park next to the Nosferatu. She's sitting on the hood of her Chrysler, dressed in the same patched jacket she wore the first time you visited Elysium, sunglasses and a no-label ball cap hiding her face, holding a coffee thermos. She holds it up to her nose, inhales the steam, then lowers it again. Let's see. I didn't take you for a coffee drinker. Vampires are strange and fascinating. It's important as you get older to find pleasure in things that aren't the blood, Dove says, or weird power games. Just because I look the way I do doesn't mean I can't develop an aesthetic sense. I remember drinking coffee when I was alive. Can you drink it? You ask. You've met a few vampires in your travels who could hold down food, though they couldn't do anything with it. No, Dove says, but you can't eat flowers either. The older I get, the more I appreciate what the world can offer me on its own terms. Either that or I'm going insane, and in a few years Leto will stake me and roll me into storage. But until then, let's drive. You glance from your Integra to Dove's Chrysler. You might be able to impress Dove with your ride or your driving skills, or both. Or maybe it's better to play it safe with her Chrysler and her behind the wheel. You idly wonder if you could snag that black Mercedes, but it's completely surrounded by gawkers now. I will let her drive her car because mine is probably in shambles. Dove nods, and you hop into the passenger seat of the big Chrysler. The machine handles beautifully as it rolls gracefully out of the parking lot, then accelerates with surprising speed and power up West Aho. Tuscan disappears behind you as you roll west. You've known Leto for a long time, haven't you? Were you in the Great War together? Before the Great War, Dove says, continental Europe was a cosmopolitan place as long as you had the money. Leto was older than me, but we were all part of the same generation of Camarillo. The railway generation, I guess, back before there were borders like you understand them. It was me, Jasper knows the Warlock, Leto, others you don't know. Older kindred were trapped in their cities, terrified of travel, but we rode the rails from Calais to Constantinople. We pretended it was important Camarilla business, of course, but we were just having fun. Dumb 100-year-old kids. Dove stomps the gas and gets around a slow-moving Volvo. You're well out of the city now in wild, hilly country. The wind is hot, even this late at night. The air of the American desert. Probably nothing like the cool winds of Europe. Leto and I got into cars and planes in the years before the war, and even when it broke out, things didn't change much. Some people got dusted or settled down for good, but most of us survived, and a few of us even got rich. Leto found a nice Ottoman girl. We didn't know at the time that she was 1,000 years old, but the world had changed. The Europe we knew was gone. The Banu Hakim couldn't adapt to the fall of the Ottoman Empire. The Brujah took over Russia, and everywhere fences appeared, borders, checkpoints. We could get around them easily, of course, but in those nights we had principles, and we hated it so much. Leto wanted to wait until the planes got fast enough that we could fly across, but we pooled our money, shipped girls across the Atlantic, and set up in the States. It's not any freer here, of course. Never was, but we could pretend for a few years. Hmm. I was always taught that vampires stayed in one city forever, like ancient Rome, all the way up to tonight. What was different then? We tricked the elders into thinking we were doing something useful, Dove chuckles, then falls silent, lost in memory, as you emerge into a narrow canyon onto a wide open plain beneath the stars. Americans don't really have elders, especially now. Sure, a few old ones like the Rimeros made their way across the ocean, but Europe is so old. Back then, you could walk the streets of Paris or Vienna at night and cross paths with things that were older than the pyramids, whole communities of them, and they had no idea what was happening in the world. Even the medievals had lost the thread, and the Renaissance crew were busy embracing a new generation to run things. That left us, old enough that we were dangerous in packs, but with no real position in the rigid hierarchies of the Camarilla. So they mostly left us alone, so long as we threw rocks at any spot we saw and kept the Masquerade secure. But it was less than a mortal lifetime, and it certainly wasn't for everyone. From the 1880s, when rail travel became comfortable, to a little after the Great War, when new security protocols made it hard to maintain the Masquerade across borders without a support structure in place. And even in those nights, it was only for the rich, the lucky, and the stupid. We were all three. The conversation drifts in the direction of necessity, feeding rights, hunter sightings, inter-clan squabbles. Excuse me. Dove, who has kept the Chrysler above 50 despite the winding road, slows as the road rises. The Chrysler coasts to a halt above the black desert. Below, not Tuscan, but a sprawl of old buildings once used for filming westerns. They're black in the moonlight, like burned ruins. You hid her once during the day, your old CRX hidden under a tarp as hunters prowled through the mission-style church and the old saloon until someone called the cops on them. Just another bad memory. Dove stops the Chrysler, gets out, and settles once again on the hood. The big car's radiator pings and pops. Before the new restrictions came down on internet use, Dove says, I looked up my family, my living family. We're all over Limnois. One of us owns a bakery, a good one, from the reviews. Another moved to Athens and became an anarchist. No one remembers my father. What about you? Your family must still be alive. My mortal family is still out there. I keep tabs on them, and once or twice I've even tried to help them out. But I can't really do much. It's frustrating, isn't it? Dove says. What can you do? Even if you have money, how can you give it to them? And if they have money, and they're still unhappy, then what then? All we do is make things worse. Dove studies the fake empty city below. When you look at her, she's nothing but a black shape against the stars. The wind blows her hair and stirs her jacket. What are we doing here, Teddy? She finally asks. You don't know exactly what she means, how she means the question. You and her, tonight, the Camarilla of Tuscan, a secret war spread out of control in the cities of the desert burn, the kindred. She glances your way, her pale eyes gleaming in the darkness. I let my hand brush hers. I want something more. I want more than an eternity of empty night stuff. Don't be ridiculous, Dove says, turning her skull-like face away. I'm a monster, but at least I am an honest one. But you can see her watching you in the garage's dirty mirror, one eye gleaming through her tangled hair. Dove waits expectantly. Let's see. True beauty is found in strength, Dove, and you are strong in every way that matters. Dove flashes you a fierce, sharp-toothed smile, studying your features. She hesitates for only a moment, then pulls you into a tight embrace, so her hair falls around your face. My sire taught me that we were not created for happiness, Dove says. He was not a religious man like my real father, but he believed that there was an order to the world. Dove squeezes your hand. I've never believed that, but I believe we do what we want and hope for the best. She leans towards you, but just then an 18-wheeler rumbles up the road, its headlights glaring, and Dove retreats instinctively into the shadows. Still, her hand never quite leaves yours until she opens the driver's side door. We can't wait around here all night, she says. Her voice has a lightness to it you've never heard before. You chat on the drive home, not a plan or an exchange of secrets or verbal sparring. You just talk about nothing in particular. The weight that always follows you around feels lifted for the first time since your CRX sputtered to a halt in the desert east of Tuscan. You settle back behind the wheels of your Integra. When you glance up again, Dove and the Chrysler are gone. The midnight mortar meat is already breaking up, so you drive to your apartment. Just want to check on my hunger. My hunger is fine. All of that looks good. Let's go ahead back down. I don't think I have a experience points. Okay, let's see what this says. You tune the Integra's radio to hear the news. This is Melanie Chen, and you're listening to the Mail at Midnight. According to federal sources, a fire set by left-wing terrorists during a failed breakout has torn through the Camp Scheffler detention facility in Texas, killing almost 100 prisoners and 30 police officers and first responders. According to Ellen Olive Kona of Immigration and Custom Enforcement, detainees have armed themselves and have escaped across Texas to Melsize. I don't know, threaten the virtue of white women? Look, I have to read this, but you know none of this is real, right? It's like, whatever happened, don't turn me off. This is a bunch of bull... Are you looking to get fit the smart way? At Paragon Fitness, we pride ourselves. All right, I have 29 experience points. My goodness, I thought I was out. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Let's get those technology points up. All I did between last time I was on and now is, I drank some blood, and I did that a few minutes before I got online. This is obscene. Trust me, I am not complaining at all. Let's just bump all of my charisma-based things. You love to see it. We're going to take intimidation. That leaves us with 12 points of experience. We're going to leave the Viper. Scroll down to Paragon Fitness. Is there anything I can do for my firearms? No, my firearms are good. Let's get my drive up, lest I have to make any speedy escapes. I don't know. I do not know. Combat, maybe, in case I am found without a gun. There we go. Now that I have one experience left, we'll shove that into athletics. I probably should have put something into my intelligence-based stuff, but hey, it's too late for that. I am a fool, didn't think of it, so let's take a look at my intelligence-based stuff and see how much I will surely be My intelligence-based stuff is fine. We are fine. We're fine, gamers. We'll be doing beautifully as we do whatever it is. We can either go deal with the rumor house, go to the emergency cache, or go to Dallas, see what Despine has. D-Espine? I'm just Despine. Despine, it doesn't matter. I don't know what I want to do first. Let's go see what Despine has for us. Chapter 8, The Cinder Block, Tucson, Arizona, night of November 30th. Sunrise is at 7:06 a.m. You pick Vonnie up at her apartment, then drive off to the Viper. As you drive, you tune the Integra's radio to hear the news. I'm surprised they got Mel back on the air after her last thing. This is Melanie Chen, and you're listening to Mel at Midnight. Do the dead walk among us? One man says yes. Greg Halden, a professor of philosophy at the University of Arizona, claims that he has uncovered an elaborate conspiracy of computerized deception stretching back decades that has allowed criminals, illegal immigrants, and scions of the moneyed international elite to establish new identities as the recently deceased. Professor Halden plans to unveil his findings once his Freedom of Information Act request gains him access to a federal database that has tracked immigration and deaths for the past 65 years. You have a long trip ahead of you, and the light has barely faded in the west by the time you roll into the nightclub parking lot. You wait for a moment until you remember that the guy whose name you never learned, the one with the Ed Hardy shirts, was apparently the Second Inquisition spy. You never learned what happened to him. You head inside, but the Viper isn't open yet, and without its crowds and with the regular light shining on the bars and the dance floor, it looks tacky and cheap. Alexander is behind one of the bars. He waves you over with an archaic, beckoning gesture. Bonnie waves back. The two retainers seem to get along. You have been warned to stay off the highways, yes? Alexander says. And you get rid of your phone. You shrug. You're here for information on the jobs, not so Alexander can interrogate you. And the job doesn't sound easy. Do you have anything for me? You ask. This time you are picking up, not dropping off, the retainer says. His breath is particularly rank this evening. He hands you the address of the Cinder Block, Despine's jazz club in Dallas, and the key to a one-bedroom apartment a block away from the club. Despine is awaiting a courier. Tell her Leto sent you, and to give you the information he needs. That easy, you say? I doubt it, uh, Alexander says. He smiles, showing his little gray teeth. You need to keep away from El Paso, so your best bet is to head north out of Tuscan. And then risk the US 60 past Lubbock and Abilene. After that, it gets easier. Texas is a spider web of minor roads, so you can remain flexible if you need to improvise. You don't want to approach Dallas from Fort Worth, too much police coverage, but that still leaves you with a lot of options. You circle back on the most important question: where do you shelter during the day? You can't make the whole trip in one night on back roads, and the Camarilla is in such chaos that they can't tell anyone you're coming. Wrapping yourself up inside your car is possible, but it takes skill to secure oneself and cunning to know where you can hide where you won't be disturbed. Because if you're disturbed, there goes eternity. And you can't just stay at the first motel you see. The Inquisition is everywhere, and though you're loaded with false license plates and fake IDs, anything unusual will draw attention. Trouble here will expose you to the sun, and almost certainly draw enough notice to violate the Masquerade. Oh boy. That's fun, isn't it? Why not? It should be easy to throw some money around and stay someplace nice. I'll have to rely on charm and my ability to persuade people not to pay much attention to me. There are a few decent hotels along the way in New Mexico with good rooms and high-end amenities. You consider your next idea. You pass all sorts of crummy alien-themed motels until you pull into the parking lot of the Marriott. It's hardly the Burj Khalifa, but it's nice enough that you can buy privacy and courtesy if you look the part. You throw on your suit so you look the part and head inside. This is nice, not ostentatious, but quiet. A good place to recover from a drug habit, maybe. You chat with the night clerk at the front desk and put them at ease. They then offer a generous tip for a quiet place to stay. The clerk is apparently used to late-night visitors and is happy to accommodate you. You're shown to a cozy suite and handed a personalized card in case you need anything. The process is entirely civilized. You double-check the binds, hang up some blankets in front of the windows, and go to sleep in the bathtub. As you get back on the road heading east, you scan your rearview mirrors for signs of pursuit, but it looks like you're in the clear. You head for Dallas. Some part of you was expecting a landscape of horror and despair when you hit Dallas. Roadblocks, burned-out cars, black and empty skyscrapers. But everything you see is normal. The wide-open highways full of white trucks, tree-lined, upscaled avenues, and trash-strewn industrial boulevards look unchanged since your last visit. You approach from the north, crossing under the President George Bush Turnpike and then scanning for a tail. Nothing. You only know D'Espine by reputation as a socialite and ghoul shaper, but you doubt the aesthete will hand over her information for free. And it's not like Leteau sent you with a suitcase full of cash. That would be too much of a risk with the Camarilla as vulnerable as it is right now. You might be here for a few nights, just wheeling and dealing. Once you're sure you're not being followed, you head back to your one-bedroom apartment. It's grubby and run down but secure, with reinforced curtains and deadbolts on the doors. Bonnie's Fiat is parked outside, and she's already gone food shopping and set up portable cameras aimed at the door and window. Dallas isn't a walking city, but sidewalks lead all the way from your apartment to the jazz club. You get an early start and check out the crowd. The line isn't long, but the people outside look sharp. Still, you're confident that you can get in. You're considering whether to move now or later when you spot the bouncer. You've seen him before. Where? Ah, Camp Scheffler. He worked for Nile, but then you saw him again with the Second Inquisition. He attacked the convert during the evacuation alongside with the Army intelligence troops. The Cinderblock's head bouncer works for the Second Inquisition. You cross the street before he notices you. How are you going to get in without him noticing you and calling a strike team? And now you need to know who at the Cinderblock is compromised and in what ways before you can even think about approaching D'Espine. A cursory investigation of the jazz club's exterior turns up a few avenues of investigation you might pursue. If you're in the mood for some old-fashioned sleuthing, the club doesn't guard its trash very well. With enough patience, you could dig out through that. You could also try talking to people. Petty criminals hang around the cinder block just like at the Viper, and if you don't act the fool, you can learn things for a modest fee. Or you could drift as close as you can to the line outside and listen, though you'd have to play it cool to not draw attention. And if you want to get dangerous, you could try testing the Cinderblock security system. Not to get in, just to see how they react. You'd have to be clever, though, to avoid getting caught. Or you could stay away from the club entirely. If that bouncer used to work for the Fed, you might be able to hack into some badly secured government websites to learn more about him. Or you could just focus on the club itself, not the bouncer. What sort of records might you tie her up about its finances and its dealings? I think I'm going to talk to the local criminals outside the cinder block. I imagine they don't hold the feds in high authority. As long as I don't act stupid, some bribe should tell me what I need to know. The dirtbags and creeps outside the cinder block are a little better dressed than the ones outside the Viper, but just as conniving and dangerous. But you're not here to make threats, you're here to put people at ease. You act friendly and a little naive, like an out-of-towner trying to find out who's holding. You spread some cash around and ask questions about the security at the club. You make it clear that you're not looking to rob it or start selling. Once your new friends believe you're here to settle a personal matter, they relax. And they're eager to talk because they hate Lewis. That's the name of the Second Inquisition bouncer, Louis Belfon. And don't much like the other people working there either. For a handful of 20s, you get names and descriptions of the 5 people working security at the cinder block. That's enough information to run a few internet searches. Those searches tell you about their military service, criminal history, anything you might need to know if you end up tangling with them. The next night, most feds are educated these days and connected. Bonnie and I conduct research at local libraries and universities to see if we can make connections between Belfon and anyone else. It's a joke among your clan that the only reason you're in the Camarilla is because the princes can keep libraries open all night. Unfortunately, you're not even sure who the Prince of Dallas is now, or if there even is one. It's been a rough few years for everyone. But Vonnie has a local connection. You drive her Fiat to a half hour north to the University of Texas at Dallas and head back into the library there, which is open to students and researchers. Excuse me. Between Louis Belfon's name and your knowledge of the cinder block, you're able to pull up hard copies of local news stories that tell you all sorts of useful information. There's not much here about Louis, but you follow police reports about the cinder block to the names and identities of the rest of the jazz club security personnel. The crooks you spoke to outside the cinder block already told you a lot, but your research turns up information on not just the frontline security personnel, but the people and companies responsible for the jazz club security protocols. You copy as much information as you can. Sure. Let me check my hunger actually, because my hunger's fine-ish. I just play it cool, wander around the cinder block, listening for anything useful. Well-dressed people standing in the line outside the club are mostly idiots, but there's a chance someone might say something useful. You and Vonnie circulate through the crowds, but you can't seem to learn anything except low-level gossip. Vonnie breaks off to conduct her own investigation, but returns frustrated. No one here knows anything about anyone. After a few hours circulating outside, you're starting to draw the attention of the security staff. You get out of there before they can get a good look at you or your retainer. And I think that the last thing I'm going to do, try and get some trash. Step 1 is getting the trash. Though it's not exactly guarded, people are always moving around in the streets and parking lots near the cinder block. You bide your time, then send Vonnie ahead to provide a distraction. Vonnie doesn't like being dangled like meat from a hook, but she walks past the guys outside anyway, and all eyes follow her. With Vonnie serving as a distraction, you back up your Integra and throw the cinder block's trash in the bow. You're gonna have to clean that, bro. You and Vonnie throw a tarp down in the apartment kitchen and start sorting. The first thing you find is a flip phone. There's nothing on it, so you destroy the SIM card so you can't be tracked and toss it. The rest of the work takes all night, but as dawn approaches, you have financial records, work schedules, inter-office memos, and someone should get fired for this, if not exsanguinated, detailed information on the CCTV systems, including where to access them. You can basically walk through the cinder block like a ghost with the information that you have here. You spent enough time investigating the cinder block and you've accumulated some useful information. You spend the rest of the night with Vonnie reviewing what you know, then rest at the apartment for one final day. You arrive early the next evening and park your Integra across the street. Security is minimal around the door right now. It's time to go in. You bide your time until Lewis goes inside, and the new guy at the door is someone who's never looked your way before. You're able to slip inside without a problem. Vonnie follows a few minutes later, so it doesn't look like you know each other. The cinder block is a jazz club, and from the posters outside, most nights that means hip-hop or Afro-Caribbean dance music, but tonight it's real 20th century jazz. A quartet is jamming on stage while their singer, resplendent in her red sequin dress, drinks and flirts with a few old and important-looking men. You spot a silver-haired Ukrainian mobster from Tuscan at a midnight blue table negotiating with a young black man with a silver-tipped cane. You get just close enough to overhear a few words without them noticing you. More than my people can use now, the black man says in a pronounced French-Haitian accent. I can't do a French-Haitian accent. Girls? The mobster asked, his expression skeptical. Girls, boys, new kinds of beautiful creatures we did not have when we were young. All fine. Oh, very fine, though. Only the best for you, Victor. The best of what you don't want, you mean? They all laugh. You keep moving. As the music switches from low-key jazz to swing, and the crowd floods to the dance floor, you spot Dia Spine. She's looking right at you. Look at this art, gorgeous as always. You know the aesthete only by reputation and description. She barely survived the fall of Tuscan's last prince and fled here to rebuild. Most kindred go thinner and become more still and corpse-like as they age, but Despine is big and energetic with a huge red smile and hypnotic eyes. Curls of black hair cascade down her broad back, swirling as she tilts her head to study you. She's always in motion, like a fledgling, her dark face artfully touched with cosmetics. She looks away and whispers to a slim, beautiful man seated beside her. He stands up, moving with impossible elegance. You've heard that the aesthete conducts surgery on her ghouls to improve them. The ghoul moves, so you, Diaspan, and he form an equilateral triangle. You look for Lewis and don't see him. It's time to approach Diaspan, but how? Yeah. I just act charming and friendly when I approach Despine and start persuading her to help. I'm not looking to piss off anyone here. I would have sent Vonnie in, but, like, I don't want to put... I have apparently already dangled her like meat in front of other people. I'm not going to put her in harm's way with Despine. As you approach the estate, you spot one of Julian's retainers talking with the beautiful ghoul. Though she's wearing a long black coat and designer boots instead of her usual tooting and practical clothes. You recognize Nadia from a few drop-offs you've made for Julian. You're not sure what she's doing here. You doubt it's good for you, but you can't hesitate now. You're not here to make a volatile situation worse. Aware that every vampire in Dallas has just had a very bad week, you watch Diaspine's crowd for a few more minutes, then approach coolly and confidently, but without the swagger that might mark a younger or more foolish vampire. Diaspine glances at you again, but pays you no mind. You remain where you are. Give me 1 second. Sorry about the delay. Alright. You remain where you are, and once she has finished disputing with a lick, another word for vampire, with a lick you remember from Camp Scheffler, she smiles and says, "Please allow me to introduce Teddy, Prince Lato's courier from Tuscan. Do you have something for me, young man?" Prince Lato needs information, you say. "Why doesn't everyone hit the dance floor for just a few minutes?" Dispon says. Her elegant followers leave in a casual way that still makes it clear that they obey her and only her. "Finally, a place to sit," Nadia says. Julian's retainer slides into the couch. You see a flicker of recognition in Dispine's eyes. She knows the servant. That will make everything more complicated. I hear Tuscan is a mess," Despine says. "What do you expect?" Nadia says. Lato thought the future of information lay in a usurper with a fast car. Don't you speak out of turn, girl," Despine says. Nadia falls silent. The aesthete studies the crowd as the jazz music picks up, then says, "We're all in trouble nowadays, Teddy. So tell me, what can you offer Despine in exchange for the information that Lato wants? An opening gambit, to let Despine feel out your loyalties. You can consider what to say." "We're all in this together, Despine. If you don't help Lato and Tuscan falls, that makes you weaker, not stronger. You're too pure and gentle for this world, you know. But I'm thinking you have a point. It's no fun being a target, and if I have to be a target, I'd like to be one with what do they say now? A target-rich environment. I'm sure that whatever Teddy can offer me with his Integra and meager... Oh, sorry, wrong person. I'm sure that whatever Tegri can offer with Integra and meager powers, Nadia says, my master can offer more, and in a way that will not trouble your relationship with Prince Lato. Maybe, Despine says, but I prefer to negotiate one at a time, so people do not collaborate and conspire. Nadia, go ask Yuri if he ever convinced Patermuster to move some of his people to Phoenix. Nadia hesitates for only a moment, then leaves. That Malay girl is trouble, Despine says, watching Nadia from beneath heavy-lidded eyes, which brings me to you what I want from you. Her smile is friendly, or at least it looks friendly, but though you've earned the respect of the local Camarilla, you know how dangerous they can be when cornered. You sit back and wait. Despine takes her time, toreadors or lovers of beauty, and to be fair, Despine, the jazz band is excellent. But finally she says, I'm going to need to deal with a lot of problems at the same time. Let's talk about which ones concern you. First, I suspect one of my bouncers. He might be working for someone else, the prince, if she's still in one piece, or hunters, but I just can't get rid of him. I need someone to feed him false information. And of course, Despine says, the Second Inquisition hasn't just dragged kindred out of their havens and burned them, they've attacked us financially. They've frozen your bank accounts, you ask. Not exactly, Despine says, but we're being monitored. Our cash can't move freely, and if I use my powers, it's likely someone in the Second Inquisition will notice that the bank just did me a favor for no reason. How much money do you need, you ask? Another $5,000 will mean I'm in the clear to operate again without the Second Inquisition's financial team sniffing around. You're hitting me up for money, you say. You could pay that, but that's what Leto owes you for this job. It's a cash flow problem, Despine says. You'll help it flow again. Isn't that good for everyone? That's some hogwash. We'll figure this out. The head bouncer, first things first. You know he works for the Second Inquisition, right? Despine keeps her expression carefully neutral, but you can see her fitting together a lot of pieces. Finally, she says, That might just make our work easier. Here's what I know. From what I've seen of the Second Inquisition, they're a confused group of overlapping government agencies that barely understand what we are. They're desperate for more information, even if it's bad. I've been going through my files from the 90s back before I had this place, or the Bruja quit and the Azimite showed up, you know? All this information, it looks real good, real up to date. But I've been going through it and it's wrong. Dangerously wrong. And I made some changes and, it's so wrong, it's basically a weapon. Get it to Lewis and he'll get it back to his masters. Like a bomb. Yeah, I'll get that data back. I'll get that false data back to your bouncer. Nope, that will definitely keep the Camarilla safe. I've had my suspicions about Lewis, Despine says from the disorganized desk of her modest office. But the Second Inquisition? She glances at Millicent. The bartender nods in confirmation. Millie, get Yuri and the other Russian, that woman who worked for the GRU. Let them know we're going to need someone killed. I thought Teddy was going to. And if he can't, Despine says, the Russians will deal with him. So be a dear and tell him to get ready. When Millicent leaves, Despine hands you a thick manila envelope full of dangerously outdated information. You skim it, now irrelevant kindred power brokers, long destroyed prince, political contacts that the Camarilla abandoned years ago. Everything's dated to look like it's recent. Trying to exploit any of this information will get a hunter killed. I don't care how you get this to Lewis, she says, but get it to him in a way that makes him believe it's valuable. Stepping back into the jazz club late that night with your parcel, you consider what to do. You can't just hand Lewis the parcel, you need to lure him in. Like every good con, it requires a mark who wants what you have. Even as you consider your options, you spot Nadia whispering to one of the licks from back in Tuscan. Whatever you do, she's going to make things difficult. Anyway, Millicent is happy to supply you with information on the bouncer, including the address of his house nearby, notes on his checking account, and other personal information. Your previous investigation of the cinder block means that you're even able to speak to some of the security personnel there and learn about him. The address isn't obviously useful because it's not like you're robbing him. You're trying to get him to rob you. Still, knowing where he lives lets you track his movements. To the cinder block, to the gym, to a 24-hour diner where he ends up each long night. You see a few ways to convince Lewis to go for the package of bad data, but you know you'll only have one shot at this, and there's more than one other problem. If you lose this parcel, it's a major breach of the Masquerade, even if this information's out of date. Oh no. Let's see. Sure, I think I'm charming enough to create a false identity to pretending to be First I hunt, actually. You don't want to hunt anywhere near the cinder block since that might draw attention, but that leaves the entire Dallas/Fort Worth metropolitan area. Nonetheless, this won't be easy. The Second Inquisition just finished their rampage, and even though the city looks normal, there's an edge to it, like it might explode again at the slightest provocation. So you better not provoke anyone. The higher end clubs have a bad energy, like they're being watched, so if you want to hit the scene, you're going to end up somewhere more dangerous. Somewhere street smarts and staying cool are going to be more important than charm or dance moves. Bars and cafes seem relatively safe if you're looking to F your dinner rather, not diner. There are lots of pretty young things out tonight, totally unaware that a major battle just tore through their city. A bit of charm, a bit of deception, and you should be able to get what you want. Just beating someone up and taking their blood is possible everywhere you go, but you really don't want to make noise. There are still plainclothes Second Inquisition affiliated FBI agents, and probably worse, patrolling the city. You'd have to be clever to spot a vulnerable target and manage a silent, stealthy takedown. There's a lot of large animal prey around Dallas, but the bad parts of town have plenty of rats. It's an unglamorous way to spend the night, but quick hands would let you drink your fill of vermin before dawn. Finally, with Dallas and Chaos, the prince destroyed or missing, you're not even sure where you begin looking for blood. You don't even want to risk a break-in with the Second Inquisition everywhere, but you might be able to investigate who still has connections and gain access that way. I'm just going to go to I'm a siren, going to hit the bars and cafes to deceive, seduce, and feed from my prey. Oh my god, how many times did I've already hit that once? Alright. Half the nightclubs in Dallas are nothing but wrestling pits and slot machines. Every place, even halfway nice, has a vibe like it's being watched. Like every third girl in a cocktail dress is an FBI agent working double duty for the Second Inquisition. But after several false starts outside of the bars and a few busts inside, you end up in a mariachi bar with decor that hasn't been updated since the 70s. This place is full of old lounge lizards. You're about to leave this cavern of red velour and faded polyester. Well, you notice how good-looking the staff is. You stick around. The music is pretty good, honestly, but what about the prey? What do you like? I've never been picky. I'll let my fate decide. The crowd here isn't all bad, you think, and one of the waitresses is cute. Management makes the girl wear those old-timey embroidered Mexican blouses, but she wears hers knotted up at the waist like she's bartending at a beer garden. You catch her eye, and she slows down, because you definitely don't belong here. "Are you eating?" she asks. You smile. She smiles back. "Do I know you?" she asks. "No," you say. "Do you want to?" You take your new friend definitely wants to know more about you. Fed up with his lousy job, she leaves early and takes you with her. It's a long walk to her place, but she's happy to ride in your Integra. She caresses you on the drive there, then runs to the front door of a small house that she shares with someone else, given the small truck out front. But you listen carefully. It's empty at the moment. Perfect. "I need to get work off my skin," she says. She strips, then steps into the shower. Well, you're not just going to wait around. You fold your clothes on the dresser and join her. You try to take your time with the soap, but neither of you wants to wait, and soon you have to blah, 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 blah. She needs this, blah, 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 blah. Your fangs slide into her thigh, blah, 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 blah. She cries out, blah, blah, blah. Finally, you've taken what you need, and your lover drifts into gentle unconsciousness. You pick her up, drop her on the bed, and brush out her hair. Then remember to turn the water off. After a brief sweep to make sure you've left no evidence behind, you get dressed and take off. Anyway, you still need to deal with Lewis in a way that won't draw down the entire Second Inquisition. I know a ritual that will make this folder irresistibly tempting to criminal is letting me sell it. You don't see any reason to make a little cash, not to make a little cash while getting rid of Lewis. You start by hitting some of Dallas's countless other dives and clubs, spreading rumors about valuable data that everyone is looking for. You also work with some blood magic into the document. You know about this right from the savage denouncements of a Banu Hakim mystic, one who, through accident or cunning, gives any observant reader all the necessary information to perform the rite. The spell said the date back to ancient Babylon, and favored by the followers of Set, involves only a few drops of vitae and some hieroglyphs and cuneiform sigils traced over the target with a burning stick of incense. Once the rite is complete, the target becomes as irresistible as Ishtar. You'll have to be careful here. The information you have contains accurate information about the kindred that would be an explosive breach of the Masquerade if it fell into the hands of some random crook. And of course, Nadia is following your trail, trying to figure out what you're up to. You end up having to use some of the worst bars in the city to conduct your business, places you want to enter. You're not exactly afraid of the people there, but they're unpredictable, and you can't deal with unpredictability. Now, oh, well, look at that achievement we just got. You work carefully, spreading rumors while controlling where they spread. You secure the help of a local middleman you can trust, not because he's honest or competent, but because he's too dumb to use the information on his own or place it into dangerous hands. Finally, after 2 nights, 3 dead drops, and a swapped SIM card, you watch from the shadowy corner of an old-school country and western bar as Lewis enters, scans the room, and spots your middleman. The deal is over in a few minutes. The batting hotel's in the Second Inquisition's hands. You calmly walk across the bar. You calmly walk across the bar's dance floor under the Club Ultra sign and snag the middleman as he tries to make a break for it. Even after this would-be thief, giving the would-be thief his cut, you don't want him causing you trouble later. You're $1,500 richer, and you've handed the Second Inquisition some absolutely toxic intel. Hard copies, of course. Deaspine says from around the corner as she unlocks a metal safe in her modest and cluttered office. She hands you a slimline briefcase with everything Leto asked for. What about Lewis, you ask? Deaspine flashes a huge and monstrous red smile. Gone. Banished with all that bad data. He'll be feeding that poison to the Second Inquisition for months. You're better than most couriers I've dealt with, I have to say. If only she saw that hospital scene. You settle a little more comfortably into the plush chair, pleased with your work. The Espine gestures to the briefcase. There's everything you need. She also hands you the registration information for a motel outside El Paso, so you have a place to stay on the way back. How pleasant. You pick up the briefcase and leave the cinder block. After one last day of resting in the Dallas apartment, you call Vonnie, and she helps you pack the apartment and sweep it for any signs of your presence. Your retainer takes off in her Fiat, and you leave by a separate route an hour later, using side streets to avoid pursuit. You're back on the highway in less than an hour. Your nerves are rattled the whole drive home. You feel eyes on you, and you hear helicopters overhead. Both nights, you spot cars following you for miles and miles. Once you spot that IROC-Z you saw a few weeks ago, or maybe that was just some other Camaro, you can't be sure, but no one makes a move. You take side streets into Tuscan, top off your gas tank just in case, but no one comes for you. You roll into the Viper parking lot. The music inside is thunderous. The bounding beats of that threaten to break your neighbor's windows every time the door opens. Prince Leto is waiting for you. Prince Leto is waiting for you. Alexander shouts. His eyes dart past you to who? When you turn, you don't see anyone. Leto and Dove are arguing it might be the Leto's Malkavian oracle with the obfuscate. Leto and Dove are arguing alone on the rooftop Elysium. You catch the words shut down and bureaucratic bullcrap. Rika cries out from atop a cactus when she sees you, and the kindred falls silent. Did you get the information from Deaspine? Leto asks. You hand him the briefcase. When your hands touch. August 1947. It won't last you, you say as the moon rises over New York City. It can't. We can't keep running around like neonates. Nothing has changed, Leto says. He's starting to wear white again. The war is over, you say. Europe is in ruins. My homeland will never heal. And America, I hate this place. I hate its crudeness, its proud and boastful ignorance. I want to rest. Don't say that, Leto cries. We don't have to stay here. What if we go west? There's no more west, you tell him. It's just California now. It's just more of this. And I can't see another night of this. Oh crap, Deaspine really did it, Dove shouts, sorting through the documents and snapping you back. Leto, boss? Leto steps away from you, then signals a retainer waiting near the stairs. Your servant returns after a few minutes with your payment in a manila envelope. You get out of there as quickly as you can. One thought keeps going through your mind. He knows. Leto knows what happened to it to Ayla. He has to. Ooh, let's see how that pans out. Much experience. I've got 18. Give me my maximum blood sorcery, please. I don't care about my other disciplines. Oh, right. What happens if I visit Vonnie? You park outside Anand Biomedical, and the door buzzes when you approach. When you open it, you're not surprised to find Vonnie there, but you are surprised to see how much the place has changed. Someone besides Vonnie obviously works the front office, and the scientist has changed out of her old UCLA sweatshirt to gray slacks and a black safari jacket, its pockets full of notebooks and scientific equipment. Teddy, Vonnie says, obviously delighted. Come in, let me show you around. The place isn't that big, but now Vivani now has two full-time employees drawn from her contacts at the University of Arizona. No trouble from Giselle, you ask? None. And I've heard rumors that Dr. Call has relocated to Seattle. Though I shouldn't tell anyone. I was just about to head home and make something to eat. What brings you to What brings you to NA Biomedical? I just wanted to do something with you that wasn't the job. Something fun. Bonnie looks like she could use a good time. Like a date? Bonnie says, blinking. Nope, don't answer that. Like what? The answer is yes, actually. I just spent all day staring at a screen, so as long as I don't have to stare at a screen, the answer is yes. Is her eagerness the result of genuine interest or of her blood bond? Maybe you'll never be able to tell. Well, I do know that I'm not taking advantage of either. We're just going to grab a bite to eat, if that is an option. If it's not it, okay. You've done great work here, but I think you're too hard, working too hard. Well, that insinuates that I'm going on a date. Never mind, here, help me with the camera, please. You seem eager to. Yeah, I've got enough money anyway. Oh, I can't offer any miracles. Not even Dr. Call could offer miracles, and she had tenure. But I know that a critical source of vulnerability within vampire society is how easy it is to track blood-related medical apparatus. However, I actually have a source back home that's about to begin manufacturing. If I can connect them with your king, Prince, then they'll have a U.S. point of sale for the devices, and your prince will have a secure source of blood testing equipment for his people's needs. She thinks for a second. What? You ask. Just so you know, I could also make connections between the people back home and that new guy, Julian Sim. Something to think about. Absolutely not. We don't work with Julian. He's the homie, but also he's against us. Let's talk to the people you know about getting the getting blood testing equipment to the local Camarilla. Give me one moment. I'm responding to a message. Alright. You spend the evening making calls and sending emails to Chandigarh, where Bonnie's uncle's ex-wife's boyfriend's aunt, that needs a relationship map all on its own, runs a biomedical equipment startup. You don't want to spend too much time on the internet, so while Bonnie calls her contacts in India, you track down Dove at a classic car auction and explain the situation. And she's good for it, Dove asks. Well, she's my retainer. If you trust her, then I trust you, Dove says. Just be careful. She goes back to admiring a 1956 Corvette. That's all you need. You head back to Vani and tell her the good news. And in just a couple of nights, shipments are on their way to Tuscan from Chandigarh. I'm going to look how to pronounce that up off camera. I do apologize for butchering that so expeditiously. Now, let's get some more level up. All of that, I don't even know what clandestine does. If I'm going to be honest with you, but I need to put points into something, so we're just gonna bop. All right, I've got 12 more. Paragon Fitness, maybe. Just bump my survival since we'll be going out to the desert right after this. I've already maxed out. Well, let's just check. Let's just check. Oh, can I not get it? Did I miss something? Oh, you need a more secure and well-appointed haven. Okay. Getting my Integra, go somewhere else. Madrigal Real Estate. Sell my apartment and put that $666.50 and put that money towards purchasing the penthouse apartment. Actually, I'm just going to get the mission. Oh my goodness. Anna smiles. It's a fixer-upper. It's a short, straight dive south through a rundown suburban neighborhood. You're wondering where someone could have stuck a Spanish mission among all the thrift stores and nail salons when you spot a mountain in the distance, and it tells you to turn off, and there, behind a highway sign advertising Chinese food, is the ruin. It's a glorious ruin. Crumbling white crumbling white adobe black against the sky. Its once symmetrical structure now marred by decay and aborted repair attempts. Anna has given you its history, but you're more impressed by the aesthetics of the place. Several groups trying to fund repairs through the 20th century. Anna says as you park the Integra, and in the 80s, a businessman attempted to turn it into a private home. After his death, it languished, but the updates are still intact. You get past the security barrier and walk through a maze of pitch-black corridors illuminated only by Anna's phone, and suddenly you find yourself in a small but tastefully appointed apartment suite. The style is antiquated but not gaudy, and the rest of the mission stretches off in every direction. More importantly, the place is a maze. You probably couldn't find your way back to the main entrance before dawn, and you doubt anyone but Anna and maybe Prince Leto know the way. This is the most secure and most magnificent of havens, even more so than the downtown penthouse. You're more surprised that Leto didn't snatch it up himself. Still, all this magnificence comes at a cost. 3,125. That is obscenely cheap. If the housing market was like that nowadays, I'd be in love. That includes the deed as well as the bare minimum necessary repairs to get this place up to code. But if you can afford it, the entire estate is yours. Yeah, no, give me that. Yeah. There's quite a bit of paperwork since the structure is so old and so the rights around it are so complicated. Nonetheless, after a few hours spent making sure a few centuries of paperwork are in order and a final call to the Vatican, Anna hands you a huge brass key, a modern laser cut for the inhabitable section, an ancient map of the grounds, and a URL for an Urban Explorer website that has more accurate maps made last year. You'll have to keep the Urban Explorer kids out. Well, part of the money you just paid will go to security. After a few hours spent securing various shadow identities under which you'll be able to access the mission, Anna hands you a laminated book that explains the security systems and protocols. You move to the 80s style apartment and the only inhabitable part of the estate. How long will it take for you to move in fully? Years? It'll be decades before you can rebuild the place. Still, with this level of security, you are now free to plumb the deepest depths of your unnatural powers. Let's get some blood first, actually. Then let's do that. Max out that. Look at that, we've got max. Where did I just get those experience points from? Did I get them from freaking buying that? Let's go back to Covenant, yeah. Okay. As you drive, you catch sight of a headlight that's been following you for a few blocks. It's the Yamaha motorcycle again. Trouble or coincidence? You shake the Ventru with a slightly aggressive merge, but you get a bad feeling, like you're being herded. It's time to get a little unpredictable. You stop at an O'Reilly Auto Parts nearest the garage where you stayed in Tuscan. You don't actually need anything yet, but you like to check these places out and make sure they're not secretly controlled by some mobster or vampire. Your job requires a lot of vibe checks. How's this vibe in this place? Creepy, jittery. You need to know. And you also need to know who's following you. You park so your Integra is reflected in the big glass window when you walk in. It's nothing weird. Clean aisles, normal levels of security, a Native American guy with a rockabilly look behind the counter, and you chat with him for 5 minutes about a Jalopnik article. I hope I pronounced that properly. He seems fine. You can use this place while you talk. While you talk, you watch the parking lot through the big windows. Your tail doesn't reappear. Lots of motorcycles in Tuscan. Is it even the same Yamaha? We could just be ruthlessly paranoid. You get back into your car, feeling confident, and roll back into traffic. When you're stopped at the next light, all the way over to the right-hand lane, waiting to turn, you hear a phone ringing. There's a payphone on the exterior wall of a taco place. That phone is just ringing and ringing. Sure, it may well be one of my contacts in trouble who can't reach me otherwise. I play Good Samaritan and pick up. I've met a lot of people over the years, and some of them have weird ways of getting in touch. Ways that don't play well with 21st century technology. Taking a chance, you turn on your hazards, hop out of your Integra, and stay low as you slide around the rear bumper. You don't see any trouble. When the light turns green, the man in the GMC truck behind you backs up and goes around, helpfully giving you the finger to express his dissatisfaction with your behavior. You pick up a phone. We found Brian. A woman's voice says. The woman says nothing more, obviously expecting a response. I'm not going to repeat that. Actually, you know what? Why not? Let's be a funny little guy. This sounds like a fun way to meet new and interesting people. Good. Very good. Wait a minute. The voice on the other line says, Who is this? Where's Bridget? You don't exactly sound like a Bridget, now do you? Fortunately, you're an expert liar. She's had some trouble with, but that's as far as you get. Wait, are you that courier? Not sure how much to reveal. You say, are you looking to hire a courier? is you? The woman on the other line says. Well, if Bridget is there, maybe I can use you. She contemplates for a moment. Meet me in the old beast slayer. I'll have a job for you. She hangs up. The old beast slayer. What does that mean? Just as you hang up and turn back to your car, a mint green Chrysler the size of one of the smaller eastern seaboard states parks behind your Integra. The window rolls down. The Ventru you encountered in the quest for Harry, the Gila monster Herminez, regards you with a quiet fury. She runs a bone-white hand through her short-cropped red hair. You took the call, the redhead says icily. A call that was intended for me, so I could learn where they were. Only because you wanted to follow him around instead of doing what I told you to do. Bridget, that stuff behind the steering wheel. Oakley's and Arizona Coyotes ball cap. Yeah. Oakley's and an Arizona Coyotes ball cap hide most of her face, but she smiles at you, then flicks her eyes towards Bridget with an expression that says you're about to get yelled at. Is this Camarilla business? Something I can help with. Oh, listen to how helpful he sounds after he messed everything up, the Ventru says. Listen, messenger, I spent years putting this together, and you... Seriously, Bridget, you need to recognize when someone wants to help, Dove says. We need help, and we can't hang around. C and Edward are probably sending someone around to check the payphone. Bridget turns to address Dove. This is my job, she snaps. I set it up. You and Leteau weren't even here when I was doing the big jobs for my sire. I was the one who got rid of Lampego. I was the one who... Did you hear that, Teddy? Bridget had this great idea a while back, and she goes to her sire, the old prince, and says to him, let's use all these hunters to destroy our enemies. And so, Second Inquisition is born. They start arguing. You let them hash out who's responsible for the Second Inquisition because you just realized what Kyra was saying about the old beast slayer. You know exactly where the Lampego used to lair. You passed the still abandoned building on your way into Tuscan. And this is how I'm treated, by a sewer rat, Bridget concludes. And you're even worse, you piece of crap, you sharper. Okay, I think our Ventru friend is getting fussy and needs a nap, Dove says, scanning her rearview mirror. Teddy, if you're interested in some work, meet me at Cafe Cavalletti after hours, and I'll give you the details about what we've been putting together. You can profit from it, I promise. She drives off with Bridget still complaining in the passenger seat. Yeah, give me that, please. And that. And the complete infiltration spoofing kit. Give me that. I buy it. I still have an exorbitant sum of money. Let me just buy the most expensive sword too. Why not? Let's just get decked out. All her stats are I'm min-maxing to the moon. Elena has entire cases full of knives, but most of her swords aren't worth a second glance. Nonetheless, you notice at least two worthwhile specimens. The first is a Bavarian M1869 with its quillions removed. It handles like a frighteningly quick and elegant machete. You could lop a vampire to pieces with this blade. Only $300, Elena says, since it's been modified. A good deal for a good weapon. Then you notice the wakizashi. No one cool owns a wakizashi, Teddy, Elena says, blue eyes watching you over her railway glasses. Nonetheless, she unlocks the case and tosses you the scabbarded blade. Oh, wow, it's the real deal. How old is this? Like 3 years? And it was made in Korea. It seems unfair that the Koreans take all the good pop music from Japan and now they are making the best ninja swords. But it is the best, and you look like a man who might actually kill someone with it. But yeah, it's not a collector's item because it's new and Korean. I broke the katana it came with trying to open the trunk of an Altima, but it's only money. 3,500. You sweep it through the air. The Wazikashi is a masterpiece. You practice a few cuts, confident that you can slice right through even the hardest skin of an ancient vampire with this blade. And you can afford it. Give me the wakizashi, please. Can I talk to Elena? I don't need a discount. I do want an ally. I need an ally in this city. I tell Elena that I'm moving up fast in the world. My charming leadership skills can bring her around. Elena laughs. What are you, running for mayor? Do you even have a place to live? I do, actually. With water that comes out, hot or cold, depending on the knob I turn. Everything you can ask for, really. She smiles, then you step close and catch her eyes. Her smile falters, and she seems to see you differently. Most people don't look at me like that when they know I have a gun, she says. She's a little scared now, but mostly curious. You need some sort of what? A team? You might need help, you say. You're planning to rob a bank? Not planning. Are you going to rob a bank? Not planning to. Give me your phone. You watch carefully. You watch her carefully, fearing anything that might let someone track you. But just as she enters she just enters an email address. Don't call me just because you want to get laid, she says. You can see your face reflected in their glasses. But I might call you. Now, take a step back, please. And yeah, I think these are just options for. So I've got an ally in Elena. See you later, homie. Let's get a better car, please, instead of my Integra. How much is that? Probably more than I have. It's a. Yeah, let me just. Yeah, that's much more than I have. Goodness. All right, let's look at the 1970 Dodge Charger 383. Don't have that either. All right, let's go back even to more years. Let's look at the 1987 Toyota Supra. I can get the durability. Toyota Supra. Where's the Toyota Supra? $7,000 for a Toyota Supra? My goodness. Yeah, give me that. Now I'm going to go to Rainer's mechanic to repair my Supra. Tuscan is full of excellent auto body shops, but the only ones open late are in the pocket of the Camarilla, and not any good. You suspect that Dove, the Nosferatu, has more or less exclusive access to them, and while you endeavor close, it's dangerous for vampires to get entangled in too many different ways. You turn elsewhere, even checking around the edges of town, but nothing is open. Then you spot one of Julian's karambit signals. You follow it back, You follow it around the back of a strip mall, past the dental office and a party supply store, to a small garage that is incongruously attached to a Chinese takeout place. A young woman in a tundung. Her fit is looking fresh, I think is what they say. It's a good fit. You order the curry, me, she asks. Then she steps back and gets a better look at you. Ah, I get it. Pull ahead. The garage is called Fine Motor Skills, and it looks like a professional operation headed by an older man and his sons, while the woman handled the takeout next door. The older man looks over your Supra, stares at you for a long time, then nods. Apparently, both of you passed the test. As long as you don't annoy the Banu Hakim who ultimately owns the place, you should get fair prices. I think I have annoyed him quite a bit. I have not worked with him, at all. There. I've upgraded that to as much as it could be upgraded. And now we are going to go to Caffrey Cavaletti and speak with Dove about the phone call I accidentally intercepted. Okay, Cafe Cavalotti is technically a chain with other locations in California and Arizona. Despite that, its cuisine is well regarded. You don't care about food, but you still know about the chain because it's known. It's a known Camarilla front. Like such places, Cafe Cavaletti is open late, and you worry a little when you look the place up online and it only closes at 4 a.m. You check your exits as you drive, making sure you have a clear path back to your estate. Then park on the street and walk to Cafe Cavaletti. Why has that been written 3 times? Just as the last couple stumbles, drunk and laughing, into the parking lot to wait for their Uber. You head around back and spot Dove's Chrysler parked behind an old Ford Bronco. The back door opens. Don't just stand there admiring my paint job, Dove says. She's wearing a beat-up leather jacket and a white t-shirt like a 50s greaser. Get inside. We have a job to discuss. Millicent stands behind her, barely visible in the big Nosferatu's shadow. She's still rocking her little house on the prairie outfit. You follow the 2 women up a flight of cement stairs to a dingy office with a bare light bulb and a sticky linoleum floor. It's the sort of place you tie a guy up to a chair in a movie and threaten to break his knees with a bat. What do you know about the family reunion, Teddy? Doves asks you, peering through the Venetian blinds so she can keep an eye on her car. You think for a second and only come up with vague rumors. A bunch of the not quite clans got together and decided to call themselves Clan Hakata. There were stories of diablerie, ancient treaties, old grudges getting settled, but you were too busy on the road to pay attention. Didn't a bunch of... Nope, not going to bring up diablerie. Seems sus. It involves some kind of peace treaty, right? I remembered a courier job from a few years back called to something called a harbinger about ending a vendetta. Apparently it worked. Good for them. Something like that, Dove says. The necromancer bloodlines hated each other, but they managed to put their differences aside and organize as a united clan, the Hakata, the Clan of Death. Let's play no mind to historical details, Millicent says. You hear activity downstairs as Cafe Cavaletti packs up for the night. Millicent moves into the hallway to watch the steps and light a cigarette, but she keeps one eye on you and on Dove. What matters is that an organized clan of death is bad for the Camarilla, and if they form an alliance with the Ministry, that could become a serious problem. The Ministry of the Snake Cult? Just like Clan Hakata, the Dove says, the Ministry has changed in the last few years. They've shed their skin. I remind you again how little I care for wordplay. Ditched most of their Egyptian cult regalia and rebranded as all-purpose fixers. Edouard Chembe and the Ministry have offered a Hakata named Chiara della Pesiglia dear, Millicent says. She takes a long drag on her Marlboro. This takes the shape of a feta. You know the term from your occult studies, though you don't normally interact with fetters. A feta, Millicent explains quite unnecessarily, as you were a student of occult history, is something that anchors a ghost to this world. Without fetters, ghosts soon decay into nothingness. A clever necromancer collects fetters and uses them to command the shades of the dead. Edouard has promised Chiara della Pasiglia the feta of a powerful ghost in exchange for a Hakata Ministry alliance. You tell my tongue is getting tired, Dove says. We do not want a Hakata Ministry alliance. And just to make it clear, Teddy, Millicent adds, neither do you. Prince Leto is an accommodating fellow and has been willing to employ independent couriers such as yourself. But if those independent clans start organizing, even he may change his mind. Yeah, I can't help but be suspicious of these two. If Leto has such a problem with the Ministry and the Hakata, why isn't he telling me directly? Why are we meeting in an Italian restaurant at 4 in the morning? Are they going behind Leto's back? Leto is far too tolerant, Millicent says. Your kind has been in the Ivory Tower for about a week and a half, Dove says, and you already think you know how to run an organization that's controlled the war for 5 centuries. That's the organization, Millicent says. Just Leto. He's let Edward's corruption fester, and now he won't act until it's too late. So the plan doesn't come out from the top. That means you could blow Dove and Millicent off without angering Prince Leto. On the other hand, maybe they have a point about the Eagle Prince and his excessive patience. All we need from you, Dove says, is to attend a fancy auction and make sure Chiara della Pasiglia doesn't get that feta. The feta in question is a silver statuette of an Indian, Millicent says. Please join us, and please join the rest of us in this current century, Millicent, Dove says, crossing the small room to rifle through the papers on a metal desk pushed up against one wall. Or at least the back half of the last one. A Native American, a Hopi ancestor of the wraith in question, Millicent says. It's being auctioned off at a private event by the Blythe Sandersons, who have been running auctions up in the hills north of Tuscan for years. But the Ministry has fixed things so the artifacts will go to them, and they will transfer it to Chiara. Once she has the feta, she'll be able to remove it. She'll be able to force the wraith to answer certain vitally important questions about the family reunion. But why she wants it isn't important. The real threat is allowing the Ministry and the Hakata to work together on a scheme like this. If they succeed, they may start working together permanently in Arizona, and that's bad for us. So I just bid, you ask? Bridget was supposed to learn where Chiara was, and then work the inside, but she decided to tail you instead, and she blew it. We can't use her now, so we want you to attend this gala and drive up the bid to at least $50,000. If you're willing to offer me a loan, I'm willing to keep the fetter. Maybe I can use it. It's certainly more interesting than a stack of... No, it is not. Why can't you use Bridget? I actually feel a little bad about taking her job. Bridget spent the last few weeks doing 2 things. First, trying to learn where Chiara was staying so we could ruin the bid and maybe even rummage around in her heaven and grab a few things. Second, shadowing you because she was convinced you were trouble. She was supposed to take a call from Chiara, but she spent an hour trying to keep her eye on you. And you took the call instead, which really is pretty funny, honestly. 1 second. Uh, anyway, no, which is pretty funny, honestly. The moment Kyra heard a new voice on the phone, Millicent says, she would have grown suspicious. She's probably already learned that her contact is a member of Prince Leto's court. The only reason she hasn't left town is because of how badly she wants this feta. Okay, yeah. Anyway, Millicent says, we just need you to drive up the price. Once the price crosses $50,000, the Blythe Sandersons transfer the item to a secure facility and employ off-duty police officers to protect it against theft. Off-duty police officers like Carlos. Like Carlos. My retainer, but you don't need to worry about that part. All you need to do is drive the price up, then we'll take it over from there. The Blythe Sandersons are waiting for a final go-ahead to begin the auction, so when you're ready, call this number to tell the Lamoyo auction is ready to proceed. Lamoyo. Got it. Millicent stabs her cigarette out, then hands you 2 cards, one for the Blythe Sandersons auction house and another for a local tailor. The auction will begin the following night, Dove says. Dress up and make contact with Carlos once you're ready. Once you're there. Should we tell him that we actually expect to reward him? Oh, I thought he would do it because it would look good on his resume, Dove says with a little chuckle. Millicent doesn't appear to have much of a sense of humor, so Dove finally turns back to you and says, we're not asking you to do this for the good of the Camarilla. If you're looking for a cash payment, how does $8,000 sound? If you succeed, we're also willing to talk to Prince Leto. This can earn you considerable prestige. That's why Bridget was so furious. She thought tracking down Edward and Xiao would see her return to a position of importance in Tuscan. If you want, we can make sure that the Ventru, whom we don't have much care for, are driven even farther out of the periphery of Leto's court, potentially allowing you to take their place. Absolutely. I would love to see that. I'm also willing to share the secrets of my blood, Millicent says, which would allow you to unlock the secrets of oblivion. However, I need to return to Dallas immediately after this conversation. You will have to look me up there. Getting late, Dove observes through the blinds again. Make the call when you're ready, Teddy. We'll be waiting. You can hear a slight gesture, a tone of eagerness in Dove's voice. She looks forward to more of your company, even if it's just monitoring you while you're on the job. Millicent, far removed from humanity, detects nothing. Still, that's your cue to take off. No doubt the 2 older vampires have more business to discuss. You head back down the cement steps back to your Supra. Dev watches you go from the window as you roll past the Bronco and the Chrysler and out of the Cafe Cavaletti parking lot, turning over the possibilities in your mind. Let's go to the Blythe Sanderson auction house. Anything to make Dove proud, of course. The other night, Dove and her somber contact, Millicent, explained how the Hecata Sciarra de la Pasiglia was conspiring with a minister named Edouard Chambé to steal a letter from the Blythe Sanderson auction house. You haven't actually heard Sciarra de la Pasiglia's side of the story, though, or her offer. Yeah, I'm not getting mixed up with them, so I'm just going to take the address that was given to me so I can know where to pick up a nice outfit and get ready to infiltrate the auction and drive up the price. You drive to the Park Place mall and use one of the payphones there to call the number you got. Blythe Sanderson Auction House. The secretary's voice is blandly professional. The seller wants to move ahead with the Lameo lot, you say, as instructed. One moment, please. I'll be transferring you to Islet. You wait. It's about time, a new voice snaps. I've been waiting for y'all to that, or get off the pot for 3 months. So now, tell me, where are we? That? What are we doing on this pot? Is that when we start the auction, you ask? Maybe the auction is when you get off the pot. You don't really know metaphors. Come on, man. Am I speaking Chinese? Am I the Silbo Gamero, the obscured whistled language of the Canary Islands? You want to start the auction or not? Yes? Good God, that's what I want to hear. She immediately starts typing loud enough that you can hear it, the clatter of keys. Everyone's been waiting for the LeMail lot, you know. It took us years to put everything together. They're going to be lining up around the block, dare I? I ask you, dare I? Yes. Tomorrow night. Let's get a move on. I trust I'll see you there. I do not like voicing Alette. You try to leverage Alette for more information, but she has a talent for yammering on about nothing as she works. But finally, she sends out the email and blasts and says, there you go, give me some time to send out emails, but I want people rushing to get in on this. Maybe the night after tomorrow. Tell Bridget I said hi. Next, you head through the half-empty mall before it closes to a tiny independent clothing store buried in the back of Dillard's. You hand the elderly Korean man the card Millicent gave you. You already have an excellent ring jacket suit, a selection of dress shirts and ties. You sink out a flame orange tie, mostly because it'll help Carlos recognize you. They can't hurt. You grab everything. You make sure your pistol can go unnoticed in your jacket just in case. Once you're back at your estate, the first thing you do is sit down and read the auction catalog from cover to cover. The catalog is beautifully printed magazine with a cover that feels like those business cards in American Psycho. Ignoring the tasteful thickness of the cardstock, you study the auction showpiece, a chair from 1920 in the Egyptian Revival style, originally built from a Masonic lodge in Gary, Indiana. Fun, I recognize that place. The interior pages, which list each item, its provenance, and its anticipated opening bid, contain an eclectic collection of occult-adjacent artifacts. Collectively, they're the LeMayo collection, though the local artist Brian LeMayo only created a handful of the items listed within. Among the bric-a-brac and gilded chandeliers up for bid, you notice two items of interest. First, there's a copy of Ukrainian poet Lesa Ukrainia's dramatic poem Cassandra, with the starting bid of $500. Covenant Pawn Shop sells a lot of junk, but Elena has a collection of rare editions of Eastern European novels kept behind glass. Since this isn't exactly kindred business, you shoot her an email to gauge her interest. She responds almost immediately. She'll pay $5,000 for it. That's pure profit, and in fact, it's such a good deal that you get in touch with a few other pawn shops and antiquarians just to make sure that the pawnbroker isn't lowballing you, but none of them are as willing to go as high as 5. Second, there's a small obsidian mask called the Black Apollo. It looks familiar, and it doesn't look like Apollo since you've never seen. It doesn't. Oh, give me one more second, gamers. I've got. Sorry. Second, there's a small obsidian mask called the Black Apollo. It looks familiar, and it doesn't look like Apollo since you've never seen Apollo depicted with fangs. Did you deliver it at some point or something? Is this a JoJo reference? Whatever. Unlike the play, that beautiful little mask reminds you of kindred business, but you can't quite place where you know it from. You finally head down to Corborough Used Books. Elaine is shouting in the back room about Gabriella Dionizio's Francesca da Rimini. It sounds like he's losing the argument, so you avoid him and plunge into the occult section. Oh boy. And after an hour of digging in indices, you find the information you're looking for in advance. In an advanced copy of that paperback that was pulped before it went to the printers. The Black Apollo charm, also called the Conquering Wheel charm, the false myth throughout the Black Sun Chariot, created by a scholar of Wicca and given to a warlock named Maximilian Strauss in 1853. I think that dude is in Bloodlines. You remember Max, you did some jobs for him maybe 10 years ago, and he did mention the false myth as a minor artifact of blood sorcery. It's said to bless vehicles. You actually use something like that, and the starting bid is only, you flip to the Blythe Standards and catalog, $1,000. You buy the Lewin paperback for $10, just because it's just having Max's name in a book isn't good for the Masquerade, and return to your estate. You know a little bit, but you need to know more. You consider what you do before tomorrow night, when the auction starts. The idea is simple. Get in, drive the price up to $50,000 so the statuette goes to a secure room where Carlos and his good cop buddies are waiting, and make sure that Shiera doesn't get the fetter. But life and life are full of complications, and you don't want to walk into a situation like this unprepared. I drive to the auction house, stay hidden, and work a ritual to reveal anything supernatural. The Blythe Sanderson house is about a half hour north of central Tuscan. You hop in the Supra and head up North Swan Road and over one of the muddy smears Arizona calls a river. Then you take a left on East Sunrise when you can see the mountains rising in the distance. It's a winding trip into the foothills, past sheep-fowl luxury estates, each with a chunky green recycling bin awaiting morning pickup, until you reach a narrow road lined with telephone poles rising crookedly above the scrubby trees. You park behind a a sound baffle and 100 feet from the gate. Then then hop the low stone wall and climb a low hill. And there it is, a sprawling estate in the contemporary Southwest vernacular style, all pale limestone and shining glass and 90-degree angles. The irregularly placed walls give the impression of a blurred indoor and outdoor spaces, but as you study the building, you see how secure it is, how carefully the estate is designed to control movement and access. For all its apparent openness, you take note of the reinforced, smartly positioned cameras and motion sensors. A gallery is visible from where you're standing, a dozen minor treasures of abstract expressionism, but getting at them will require penetrating 3 security perimeters, dealing with multiple camera and detection systems. But you're not here for any of that. You head back down the hill into the deep shadows of the cacti, that will hide you from the light of the rising moon. Every occult tradition teaches several rites that will reveal what kind of mischief other occult traditions are getting up to. The problem with necromancy is that a fetter is not in and of itself magical. It's just something that a wraith feels strongly about. After some consideration, you select an old hodgepodge thaumaturgical ritual that modern Tremere, like your sire, will never condensed to use. You recheck the instructions on your Kindle, then sketch an intricate cod Hebrew symbols into the sand. Once you are sure that you have it right, you spill your blood into the symbol. This isn't Tremere high sorcery, but some poor British warlock's approximation of local witchcraft meant to detect sprites and haunts, to gauge the mood of seasons, and other hedge-witchy concerns that are normally beneath this notice of sorcerously inclined vampires. But fetters are so subtle that catching a ghostly scent on the breeze might be all you can hope for. You speak the last few words, a semi-literate mix of Hebrew and Latin, and wait. Nothing. Spells bust. This happens with old rites. Fortunately, there are plenty more up-to-date rituals. But as you pull your beat-up Kindle out of your messenger bag, a cloud passes over the moon and the entire world goes black. You blink, but even your keen eyes can't penetrate the murk. And then you look to your left, where the estate should be, and you realize you can see it, even though a hill is between you and the structure, not the estate itself, but the corridors within. You're looking at trails and traces, the wanderings of spirits through the halls. Even ghosts don't like passing through solid walls, so what you're seeing isn't an accurate depiction of the interior. You had expected hints and inclinations from this bow, but this is a clear and concrete, as clear as a 3D model constructed from drone footage, except you can't record it. You memorize everything you can, committing the hallways to memory and noting at least one other object of power. That must be the Black Apollo. Both are currently in heavily secured vaults. This information is excellent. It's also worrying. You were expecting little flutters and breaths, but the estate is a black cloud of necromantic energy, a dark nexus. What are you walking into tomorrow? Then the moon emerges from behind the cloud and your vision returns to normal, so you pick up as fast as you can before something finds you out here. You follow the auction house's Twitter account until you see that the LeMayo lot is going up. Then get ready. The night of the auction, you put on your suit, take your Supra through your favorite North First Avenue car wash, and drive north through once again into the foothills right behind a Corvette Z51, whose driver seems annoyed by how easily you keep up with him along the twisting roads. A cop car solves this problem when it screams past the Corvette, lights flashing, and blares its siren until you pull over. Carlos gets out of the badged Chevy Tahoe and approaches you, wearing the jacket of a private security company. Is he even allowed to pull you over like this? Got more information, Carlos says, his bloodshot eyes darting from around as traffic rolls past. That Hakata Death Witch, she's probably going to make a long-term deal with the ministry if that minister she's working with can secure the statuette. Should I be worried about the Masquerade? Two non-Amarilla clans can really make a mess. So Dove is doing this. She's not here for Bridget's power play. She doesn't want a bunch of ghoul ghosts wandering around Tuscan, or worse, some kind of Hakata ministry skull pyramid cult. This guy Kiara is working with... Fun. Is some kind of cultist. Real bad news, and it's going to get worse if that gets out to Kiara. That's to the statuette. Sorry, if he gets Kiara that statuette and they form an alliance. Carlos hands you a blurry photo of Edward from the fashion of the people around him. You guess it was taken in the mid-90s. That the good news, Carlos says, is that we don't think Shahara is actually allowed in the auction house. She and Ailette Blythe Sanderson had a big row a few months back. She'll get thrown out if she tries to bid on the statuette, which is why she needs this ministry guy. But she might be hanging around outside, so watch yourself. You know what to do. Drive the price up, and I'll grab the statuette when the auctioneer secures it in the back. Don't blow it, Teddy. The retainer hurries back to his tail. As you start to pull out, he blasts past you, showering your car with gravel, then accelerates up to 70 before you to get there before you do. You get back on the road. At the time, the auction house is surrounded by a sea of metal, gleaming new Bentleys and BMWs with a few sports cars mixed in. You spot a few middling Ferraris and Lamborghinis, trade goods purchased without love, then a beautiful bone white Jaguar XJS. You watch as the driver steps out. That must be Chiara della Pasiglia. She nods to someone half hidden by their low-slung cap, seated in a parked Ford Transit. The van is labeled New Moon Catering. Chiara is wearing a white suit, and she looks like she could blend in with the upscale crowd, but she doesn't go inside. She takes up position near where the caterers gather to smoke and watches the main entrance. While you didn't meet with Chiara, her eyes glitter dangerously as she scans the crowd for anything unusual, kindred, or unusual, and you suspect that her clean eyes will detect the telltale signs of a walking corpse if you're not careful. So that's your first problem. Not get spotted. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I find a valet I can bribe with a few C notes and get him to slip me inside without using the main door. The valets are lined up like cats at a fishing wharf, evenly spaced to avoid squabbles over territory. You brake early, disrupting the careful geometry, and roll down your window. Two valets realize what you're doing, and there's a moment of tension as they negotiate for who gets the bribe. In the blink of an eye, the negotiation concludes, and the more eager of the two valets run up to you. He says nothing about your humble Supra. There's someone I don't want to see at the main entrance, you say, handing him 100 and nodding in the direction of Chiara della Pasiglia. No problem, the kid says, smoothly pocketing the note. Slide over. He takes the wheel and brings you around to another entrance, where an appraiser is standing outside his BMW, smoking a cigarette and talking to a gallery owner about the Blythe Sandersons. They both fall silent when your Supra appears, but the valet gives him a friendly nod and they go back to gossiping as the valet slows down. I'll park you right next to the delivery truck, out of sight, pointing to a full-size Freightliner. You hop out, nod to the appraiser, and pass the cloud of smoke into a private lounge. Then you walk down a carpeted corridor at the auction hall, completely eluding her. The auction hall of the Blythe Sanderson estate is full of rich people yammering while downing cocktails and gulping hors d'oeuvres. I don't think I pronounced that properly. Oh well. You've endured your share of high society soirees while working odd jobs for the Camarilla. They're usually sedate affairs, stuffy and unpleasant, full of people who don't want to be there, who hate each other or both. Some posh events, especially if gambling or sex are involved, have a manic energy as fear mingles with predatory greed in the spoiled, rotten brains of the American aristocracy. But this is different. People are drinking hard. It's a joyless, steady consumption, like men about to go over into the top into enemy machine gun fire. Even a whole night after performing the ritual, you can still feel the ghosts moving through the gleaming corridors. Maybe the people here can feel them too. I let Blythe Sanderson move slowly through the crowd, talking too fast, laughing too energetically at bad jokes, her blonde hair immaculately coiffed in her midnight blue dress, conservative and exquisitely tasteful. She greets you with a white smile and the reek of expensive gin. Asks if she can get you something to drink, then moves on before you can respond, obliviously hunting for someone more important. When she moves, you spot Carlos in the uniform of a private security company. The Gold gives you a nod. He'll be ready to lift the statue as long as you can drive up the price. You have an hour until the auction itself starts, and longer until the fetter is up, and you'll have to spoil this nation Hakata Ministry alliance. And though the oppressive energy of the estate feels like a physical weight on whatever is left of your soul, you consider what to do. You could try following that rancid energy to its source. A sufficient sensitive and perceptive vampire might be able to learn what kind of darkness waits here. That might even lead you to the fetter, which could save you some time, or it might lead you to some horror better left buried. You could also sniff around for something to steal. This is an auction full of priceless antiquities and would require both stealth and steady nerves to avoid drawing attention. Speaking of crime, a familiar figure sidles up to you. It's Elaine Corbeau, the bookseller, who points out a tall, handsome man and an elderly man in a flashy black suit. How good it is. How good to see you moving up in the world, Teddy, Corbeau says. He's smiling as if he knows exactly why you're here. You're not working for Victor, are you? The other man has a dazzling smile, broad and handsome features. He looks like he could be president, though when you speak, you hear an Eastern European accent. He's one of the few people not drinking. Victor, you ask. Kobal, Corbeau says. Sometimes called Victor the Ukrainian, though not in this crowd. I assume you're here to admire art, but if not, well, be careful around Victor. He's a gentleman in his way, but not when crossed. Elaine Corbeau wanders off to listen to the jazz band. If you don't want to commit property crime in the normal fashion, there's always fraud. Maybe Corbeau or his associates know which lots are worth bidding on, and if the ministry can transfer the feta to Clan Hakata for cheap, maybe you could do the same. Jigga would be coming into the conversation already, knowing something about antiquities, but you could convince someone you're experiencing, and you're an experienced academic. You might be able to learn something you can profit from. But maybe now isn't the time for that. Making a quick buck, all you're supposed to do is drive up the bidding. But what if it's not that easy? Maybe you could talk to someone here, make a friend, try to make sure you're not shouted down or removed because of a technicality. You have to be on your best behavior to impress these rich dips, but having an ally in your corner might help. I think I'm gonna try and charm my way into our company because I'm gonna make a lot of enemies when when I sabotage the bid. Among the very rich, it is an astonishing act of rudeness to disrupt an act of fraud as it is taking place. What you're about to do is a violation of the solidarity that sustains the wealthy. Their belief that a crime is not a crime if it is done amongst friends, with everyone getting a little bit of what they want. Francisco, at least, is aware of Shiara's scheme, but Ailette and Shiara do not seem to like each other, so maybe you can work on her. You wait until Ailette finishes her conversation with Victor Cabal about poetry from behind the Iron Curtain, then join a group of aggressively intoxicated loud talkers who swarm Ailette to congratulate her on the elegance of the party. They're obnoxious and abrasive, which is perfect because you're not. You tell a few light and charming jokes, ask Ailette some questions, and about the lots that let her sound not intelligent and knowledgeable, then hint at your own interests in certain Native American artifacts of modest value. She seems to understand you. More importantly, she seems amused by your insinuations. You cannot, of course, extract a formal agreement to help you ruin the rigged auction, but she isn't fundamentally opposed to your plans. You graciously take your leave, and the drunkards start flattering her again. It's a strange celebration leading up to the auction. The alcohol flows freely, but the crowd is quiet, joyless. Even the young people are subdued. Everyone keeps drinking as if hoping to banish whatever pall hangs over the Blythe Sanderson auction house. You wonder if being dead, you can even feel what these living people are feeling. You detect the aura of death and loss here, but to you, it's a colored screen over a lamp, casting everything in shades of darkness. To the living, so much farther than you from the world of ghosts, it must be like a carry-on stench. They're doing what they can to cover it up while not understanding what's wrong. You step outside to where the smokers have congregated to talk to a valet, confirming the location of your car, then head back inside and immediately retreat into the shadows behind the jazz band when Edouard appears in somber black, carrying his Anubis-headed cane. He draws the gaze of the auction goers. They do not seem to know him. He approaches Ailette, carries on a brief conversation that you cannot hear over the band, then smiles a dead-eyed smile and retreats to wherever Shiara is waiting outside. You have to move carefully now. You don't want him to be aware of your presence before the auction begins. What's my hunger looking like? 3. What are my feeding options? At a high party like this. Dreadfully limited. Security is tight in other circumstances. Security guards themselves might fall to a vampire's fangs, but these guards move in teams of 2 or 4, and you think somewhere always on cameras. The crowd doesn't seem particularly amorous, but they are drunk and getting intoxicated by the minute. You may be able to lie, manipulate one into a closet or something by pretending to be. It doesn't really matter, does it? An art dealer with an illegal to sell, a street dealer, or whatever. All you need to do is lure one of the drunks away for a second and hit him without any guards or cameras. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Actually, I'll lure someone away with a few subtle lies and promises, then feed on them when we're alone. I just didn't want to hit them. While security is tight, they're focused on property crime and maybe breaking up drunken farces, not on what you plan to do. You take your time scanning the crowd of increasingly drunken, frantic auction goers. How are they going to bid it in this condition? You wonder. Finally, you spot an ideal target, a tired-looking woman in late middle age, obviously wealthy but unfashionably dressed, who has spent the last half hour trying and failing to get her husband's attention as he yammers on with his fraternity buddies. The first thing you do is calculate a safe route for any potential prey, one that avoids cameras and where no one will see you leaving with your target. After a few minutes of prep work, you know what to do. The moment the woman is alone, you glide up behind her, make friendly introductions, blandly misrepresenting yourself as a wealthy collector. You lie about the treasures you've accumulated over the years, and what they mean to you, all the while steering the woman towards an elegantly appointed breakfast nook far away from the main areas of traffic, with an Art Deco vase on the table. Do you see this place? You say. Your prey leans over. This piece. This one has an interesting history. That's when you sink your fingers into her neck. She instantly surrenders to the ecstasy of the kiss, crying out a little as you feed. Her taste is exquisite, as the alcohol in her veins is sweet and intoxicating. Your own life is so often without flavor, even as you attend to the constant necessity of feeding, but this woman's blood is full of depth, worthy of continued exploration. Oh, goodness. Okay. May 2004. A scholar I know believes that innocence has a kind of substance, your sire says, returning from her bedroom. She does not feed in your presence and will not permit you to feed in hers, but you can see your research assistant lolling in dazed ecstasy upon her red silk bed. Wrapped in her poison green dressing gown, Dr. Call closes the door, then crosses to the window and looks across the street to the opera house. I've existed for long enough to know that evil is real, Teddy. I have tried to place the art of thaumaturgy on a scientific basis, but I know that the thing inside us is more like the devil than anything else. You felt the beast inside you. It will never go away, and if you're not careful, it will spread. We are monsters, and we exist in the world of monsters, to kill each other, to ruin each other. That is our nature. The strong amongst the kind have a foot in our world, so to put it crudely, if you need to kill a cop to survival, do it. But to kill while feeding, or because it is convenient in the moment, do that, and your beast grows and your humanity withers. Do it enough, and you become a nameless monster. I don't know why it happens that way, but that's how it happens. Make peace with your nature, Teddy, but do not indulge it. She notices some of the blood on her chin in the reflection, and for a moment you see the wild rage that lurks inside Dr. Nvidia Call. Then she quickly masters herself and dabs away the blood with a handkerchief. Oh boy. A few seconds later, you let go because you realize she's dead. You drop the corpse into the towel and her head hits with a wet thump. Now what? You close the nook's sliding door and consider your options. Could you get the corpse into your car? No, there's no way to wrap it up for transport across the parking lot and make it look like an accident. You don't have time to set something like that up. Even as you think, you're rifling through the breakfast nook looking for something you don't know. A secret door to another room or a garbage disposal built for a whole sheep or something, but there's nothing. Wait, you check the cupboards again. Nothing in there, nothing at all, like a totally large enough to fit a single body. This is by no means an ideal solution. If you can't bury this body, you can at least make sure it's not traced back to you. You lick the corpse's neck to heal the fangs before the cells die, then cram the corpse into a cupboard. Someone will find it eventually, but you watch the cameras carefully. No one recorded you and this woman together. You don't think anyone noticed you before leaving together. You carefully open the sliding door and look around. No one. You hurry back to the party. At least the death has sobered you up. What is my humanity? Oh boy. Down another point. Fun. I'm going to be real with you gamers. After this section, I am heading out for the evening. A cheap-sounding digital chime announces the start of the auctions. The jazz band packs it in. Porters move smoothly and efficiently to set up folding metal chairs like an outdoor wedding, and the Blythe Sandersons' anxious, intoxicated guests slam down their champagne, flutes, and whiskey tumblers. Frederico Sanderson ascends to a small stage in front of the black curtain, and below a screen. Art dealers, antiquarians, and security personnel move the bids into position. You actually have enough cash on you to bid on a few items if you want. Some items are out of your price range, which are mostly just useless to you, but two caught your eye. The first is a copy of Cassandra by Lysia Ukrainia, which is starting to bid at a mere $500. You're sure you could get a lot, and that, Elena, you're sure, could get a lot more for. You probably won't be able to get it if Victor the Ukrainian starts bidding, though, but there's also a so-called Black Apollo, which has real power. Start bidding at $1,000, and you suspect that, it can't go for less than $4,000, probably more. You might acquire it since its provenance is murky and real collectors care about that kind of stuff. The first item up for auction is the gilded lamp from the estate of some Russian aristocrat who got iced in the revolution. It goes for an unexpectedly high amount, north of 50 large, which gets everyone talking and texting. The weird necromantic energy that hangs over the auction house transforms into manic excitement. The next item on the lot is a folding Japanese screen, which also goes for more than people were expecting, and you're starting to worry that you won't be able to afford anything. But just after the bidding finishes on an antique record and a wax cylinder collection, before Cassandra is brought out, Victor receives a text. He scowls, hesitates, and finally gets up. There's apparently business he needs to handle on his phone right away. He speaks rapid-fire Ukrainian to one of his goons, probably explaining that he wants the next item, but the bruiser he leaves to handle the bidding is not exactly a sophisticated-looking fella. You might be able to outbid him, and if you can flip that book for good money. The only problem is that you've never actually attended an auction before. Nonetheless, you've watched a crowd work for a few minutes, and you've seen a few winning techniques. The woman who won the first round of bidding for that fancy lamp was tenacious and downright mean, browbeating her opponents and outlasting them. The man who got the floating screen was tricky. He got into the game late, acted nonchalant and uninterested, and manipulated his opponents into giving up before snatching up the prize at the end. The man who scored the 17th century replica of a Minoan goddess idol also bidded his time and came in late. But you notice how his eyes darted around from the other bidders to the auctioneer to some of the art dealers. He was taking in everything, thinking fast and clearly. I'm going to rely on trickiness and manipulation, acting cool at first, then swooping. Actually, I'm going to be stubborn and mean because I'm going to save trickiness and manipulation for later. Stubborn and mean, as I need to be to get that book. $4,000 is what I'm willing to bid. The starting bid is $500. You expect it to reach $1,000 before any serious bidding starts. How high are you willing to go? $4,000. The bidding is ferocious at first, and you throw yourself right into it. Victor's undergoon puts up a good fight, but he's obviously not used to this kind of thing, and probably prefers to make threats with a knife in his hand. Your only other real competition is a wealthy member of the Santa Fe Institute's advisory board. The professor stays with you for a while, but you're so tenacious and aggressive that he too backs off. Sold to the gentleman lurking in the shadows for $2,000, Francisco Blythe Sanderson says, banging his gavel. His scattered applause. You oppress them, and drunk people like to applaud things. There's a short break because you want to acquire the book right away. Alette hands it to you and then helps you get it into a handsome fall leather carrying case. She still has no idea who you are. They really do take the aesthetics of this experience seriously, despite how drunk most of the auction goers are. Once you've settled again, you wade through a few uninteresting items. An astonishingly ugly Edwardian coffee table, a collection of jeweled brooches and hat pins, and a disciple of Lalique until the Black Apollo is up for bidding. Even after acquiring the play, you still have enough money for it if you want. The so-called Black Apollo of Perga, Francisco Blythe Sanderson says as an assistant positions the small black mask of the solar deity on a cloth pedestal. Originally called the Apollo charm of Heliopolis, this remarkable artifact was to be a 16th century forgery in the 1930s, but its pedigree may be more interesting as a forgery than as an authentic Greco-Roman artifact. Created by the master artisan, he traces the Black Apollo's full history, but you're only half listening, mostly because you suspect most of it's wrong. That's an artifact of vampiric society, and whatever stories have been told about it are almost certainly false. As Francisco prepares to open the bidding, a few auction goers glance your way, taking notes of your previous behavior. They'll make a more aggressive approach this time, since they might see you come in. Sure, I pay attention, studying my rivals and the auctioneer so I can place responsible bids. $8,000 is how high I'm willing to go. Let's see how much I end up spending. Alain Corbeau opens the bidding, but more aggressive bidders immediately swamp him. You study the crowd, trying to get a feel for how eager they are and what motivates them to try claiming this prize. Two men surge out in front of the bidding, a Bolivian art collector and an Algerian restorationist. You watch them carefully, then watch the auctioneer. You know that the art collector is going to bail before he does. When he finally stops running up the bid, the restorationist looks pleased, but a little nervous with how much he's spending. That's when you place your bid. Your competition looks relieved when he has an excuse to bow out. So, to the owner of the Cassandra, Francisco Blythe Sanderson says, banging his gavel. There's another round of polite applause. How much did I spend on it? Like the book, you choose to claim your prize immediately. Alette places the little black mask in a velour-linted tin container, not much bigger than an external hard drive. Then hands you a booklet that traces the mask's alleged history. There are two more auctions before the fetter, two portraits, the first Fayum mummy portrait from the Roman Egypt, and the second an oil painting of occultist Joseph Peladon by Alvaro Dachot. You spend the time reading the booklet and making sure nothing in it violates the Masquerade, because you recognize that a part of your role here is making sure that nothing directly connected to the kindred is here. There's nothing in the booklet worth worrying about, though, just speculation and ghost stories. There's also nothing about how to use the Black Apollo. You'll have to mess around with it when you get back to your estate. Our next item, Francisco says, is a statuette of a Hopi woman in silver and turquoise, sculpted by the late artist Brian Lemeo. There's a whisper of excited gossip since Lemeo was murdered over a political dispute that tangentially involved Alet's family. The resulting investigation caused the downfall of at least one Texas political dynasty, and eventually led the Blythe Sandersons to acquiring everything that's up for auction today. You check your pockets for your spare keys in case you need to get out in a hurry. The fourth statuette appears on the screen like above Francisco. The workmanship is exquisite and unique. You can't really place the style. Like if Camila Claudella got into Mayan statuary. The figure's dress has patterns you associate with Hopi pottery, though in cool grays and blues rather than the earthy tones you recognize from local artisans. Though the statuette is more recent than anything else on the auction block, its beauty draws people's attention. Still, the opening bid is $1,000, and no one expects it to go for that much, since you and only the vampires know its power. Bidding will start at $1,000. Do I hear? Yes, one Monsieur Chambay. The follow-up set wastes no time. You can see Sierra de la Pasiglia standing outside. Behind her, a retainer waits in a delivery van to retrieve the fetter. Your job is simple. All you need to do is drive the bid above $50,000. Once that's done, Monsieur Chambay can win the auction because this is the Blythe Sandersons will insist on moving anything that valuable to a secure room before transport. In Dove School, Carlos will be there to pick up the fetter. Do I have 5,000? A few other people are bidding on the statuette, but they're small timers. The fix is in, and Francisco is giving the item away to the ministry. The bid at 4,000. The bid is at 4,000. Francisco says, 4,000. You raise your hand. Monsieur Chambay's reptilian gaze snaps around to focus on you. He seems to realize that he's in trouble the moment he sees you. 4,000 going twice, Francisco says quickly, getting ready to bring the gavel down. You loudly clear your throat to prevent Francisco from ignoring you. 5,000, the auctioneer says through gritted teeth. The man in the orange tie. Do I have 6? Yes, 6, Monsieur Chambet. 6,000 going once. You've already raised your hand again. And so it goes up, past 10, past 20. As the crowd tries to hide its excitement and a trickle of sweat flows down Francisco's temple, you wonder what leverage the ministry has on him. Alet watches nervously from the sidelines. Outside, Sierra has disappeared. She must guess what you're doing. 25, the auctioneer says, his voice breaking. You've got his attention now, so you don't have to rush to raise your hand, but something else draws Francisco's attention, and he gasps. The room feels cold. Even the previously eager crowd seems to feel the chill. More importantly, Francisco hasn't responded to your raised hand. He's looking elsewhere at 30,000, Francisco says, his voice a little shaky. To the gentleman in the feather coat. Brian Lemeo, the creator of the statuette, now a wraith bound to it as a fetter, sits comfortably in a folding chair at the far end of the room, wearing a long coat of black raven feathers. No one else seems to notice that he's partially transparent. You've never encountered an actual wraith before, but the problem here is obvious. You were only supposed to drive up the price for the fetter, and after that it was Dove's problem. What happens if Lemeo claims his own fetter? As for Nosferatu, Dove's supernatural talents extend to invisibility and ripping people in half. What can she do against a wraith? Do I hear 35,000? Francisco says, having recovered a bit of his poise. While you've been contemplating, Lemeo and Edouard have been lobbing bids back and forth. You feel the power building around the minister, furious at the intrusion. He's invoking his supernatural majesty to bend Francisco to his will. But even as Edouard burns with power, so does Lemeo. You don't even know what strange powers the Wraiths commands, but your thoughts go to the Masquerade. This auction is becoming an event that people will remember. Sierra is outside again. She's holding a scroll. Maybe it's Lemeo's. Her eyes lock onto yours, and you know that if anyone other than Edouard claims the fetter, she'll act. You have no idea what necromancy will do in a room full of drunk auction goers, but it can't be good for you or for the Masquerade. So now you have two goals: to push the bidding past $50,000 and to make sure that Lemeo doesn't claim his own fetter. You'll have to be quick on your feet. Francisco is trying to ignore you, and the combined power of Lemeo and Edouard is scrambling his wits. Since you suspect that Lemeo doesn't have money since he's just a ghost and wants to keep his spectral hands on the fetter, it's not like you can actually keep up with raising the bid. You'll have to do something to draw and hold the auctioneer's attention. LeMayo flickers a little. There's a good news here. He's obviously focusing all his will to remain solid and visible. He acts, you notice, a bit like a sluggish video call connection, prone to stutter and lag. You can outmaneuver LeMayo and Francisco's attention. If you can do that, you can gain the upper hand. Whew, I'll have to manipulate the auctioneer into listening to me and persuade him that my bids are good while LeMayo's aren't. Do I have 45? Francisco says. 45? Do I have 50? 50? You start to raise your hand since this is what you're here for, but the auctioneer ignores you, acknowledging LeMayo instead. But that wraith is, in reality, a little more than a shadow, manipulating the auctioneer's brain into an assembly full picture of the real person. You might be dead, but you're real and solid, and a little bit of charm goes a long way. You smile, sit up straight, and draw Francisco's attention, even as LeMayo and Edouard bid back and forth. 65, the auctioneer says. Edouard is out. He glances your way, but you smile graciously, then raise your hand. Oh, it's getting exciting, isn't it? You say, it's not that funny, but Francisco and Alette laugh as you release some of the room's nervous tension. Edouard looks like he's going to rush you, but he slumps in his folding chair, defeated, as the laughter rolls back and forth. LeMayo looks furious. He's trying to get Francisco's attention again, but everyone is having fun with their little chuckle. And whatever's dark energy sustains him, he's running out of it. Do I have 70? Francisco finally says. He looks at LeMayo, but your little charm offensive has taken too long. He freezes, like a video recording, just before he can raise his hand again. 70? He glances at Edward, who glares poisonously but can do nothing. Current bid is 65,000. Going, sold to the man in the orange tie for $65,000. LeMayo slumps in his chair, defeated as the Blythe Sandersons discuss the security that the statuette now needs. Edward stares at you, then notices Chiara as she enters through the main doors. He jumps to his feet and all but drags her out of the hall before she can start some kind of messy confrontation. You're not sure if she's forbidden from the auction house or if her appearance would merely raise questions she cannot answer, but she's holding a rune-carved skull, so you're glad that Edouard leads her back outside. Or nope, just Edouard leads her back outside. There are more auctions, and the crowd is getting excited again, since both the Rocco chandelier and the Egyptian revival chair are expected to sell for over $100,000. No one notices when LeMayo fades away. You weren't the main event, and now your part is done. Part of the job is done. You spot Carlos at the curtain behind the auctioneer's podium, and he gives you a nod. As Alette boxes up the fetter and watches a porter and a guard carry it away to a secured location, you head outside. Chiara and Edouard are gone, and a minute later, a valet rolls with your Supra. You head back into Tuscan and reach Cafe Cavaletti in under an hour. The Maître d' makes sure you have a private table that faces the window. You alternate from watching the diners and monitoring the traffic as you wait for Dove with an untouched glass of Chianti in front of you on the old-fashioned checkerboard tablecloth. She's a difficult woman, a voice says from across you. She's a difficult woman, a voice says from across you. I tried talking with her, but once Dove sets her sights on something, she just sees it through to the end. LeMayo is just a dark patch on the wall, his voice almost inaudible. I've never spoken with a wraith before. How long can you manifest for? I'm curious about the properties of this strange creature. There are no numbers where I'm from. No distance, no days and nights to count, no sun or moon. How long can I manifest? How long would you hold your breath when you breathed? Everything is like that for me. Everything down there is about how badly you want it. And I want my fetter returned to me. He seems to burn with grey light for a moment, then he calms down. And not just as a wraith, but as I suppose a man. I was a craftsman when I had a body. One of the best. And I hear that the Prince of Tuscan still wears my jewelry. The statuette is mine. As you wonder what Dove and Millicent plan to do with the statuette, since neither is a necromancer, Dove's mint green 1965 Chrysler 300 parks across the street. The Nosferatu pulls her ball cap low and heads your way. Carlos appears in the window, checks inside, nods to you, and Dove and her ghoul pass through the kitchen to reach the main dining room and settle into a screened booth. You join them, glancing back at LeMayo to see if the race is following you, but he's faded away completely. You did it, Dove says as she sets the statuette on the table. When we left, Chiara and the minister were screaming at each other in the parking lot like an old married couple. I don't think we'll have to worry about a ministry-Hecata alliance, at least in Arizona. So, Teddy, do you know any necromancers who might want this thing? Why don't you give it to Chiara? In other words, why can't the Camarilla make an ally of Clan Akata instead of the Ministry? Huh? Dub says, leaning back in her booth. That could work. We have to be careful, Carlos says. She's a thief, you know. She must just thieve it from us. Deal that big and we'll have to get Leto involved. I might negotiate with Shayara, one lick to another, but if this is about a larger alliance, the prince needs to know. But that's good thinking, Teddy. I'm going to talk to Leto about striking a deal with Shayara that moves Clan Akata away from those snake cultists and towards us. I'll get started by talking to Bat. Good idea, to let the little people work things out first, Dub says, pocketing the statuette. And more importantly, I believe we promised to reward you if you didn't completely screw this up, and you didn't. Yeah. Make sure that Leto knows what I did for the Camarilla, and keep Bridget from spreading nasty rumors. Reputation is more important than money right now. I've got plenty of money, and I'm just gonna make some more from Elena. These aren't as good as the ones at the Viper, Carlos says, after chewing through his mozzarella stick for a few moments. I like the sauce here, lots of oregano. We'll get to spreading tales of your heroism. Yes, let's hope reward success, and I'll be happy with both of us for breaking up the Ministry-Hakata alliance. Satisfied, you leave Carlos to suck cheese out of his sticks and head back to your Supra. You're back at your estate an hour before sunrise. You return to your estate and park the Supra. We're going to see what the Black Apollo does and try to figure out how it works. Though you haven't dealt with this exact artifact before, you work a few simple rituals to learn about the Black Apollo's nature and function. This charm will enhance the performance of any vehicle, from a Roman chariot to your Supra. All it needs is a smear of vitae in a prominent position inside your car. Yep, there you go. You can have that. Some blood from me. The tiny black mask hungrily absorbs your vitae, then it shimmers with occult power. You're hanging off the rearview mirror where Julian used to keep an air freshener on his geo-tracker to hide the smell of blood. Then you walk around your car to make sure that nothing obviously supernatural is visible. A short test drive reveals that your car handles unnaturally well. You set your phone up to take a recording of your car on the move, but when it plays back, there's nothing visibly strange about your Supra. This is fantastic. Furthermore, you should be able to move the charm from the vehicle without smearing it with more vitae. It's yours now. Give me some blood. Gonna go to Covenant Pawn Shop. You got it? Elena asks the moment you walk in. You hand her the copy of Ukrainia's Cassandra wrapped in white paper. Oh, wonderful, she says, unwrapping it and running her hands over the binding. What did you bid? $2,000, you say. After a moment, since you like to get paid, you clear your throat. What do the dead need but shorn hair and blood and sacrifices? You wait. Hold on. She goes through the safe in the back and leafing through the book and returns still distracted with $5,000. What happened to my money? I thought I had well more than that. I dropped something. I think it was a remote. I'll get it after I end the stream. Very nice, Elena. Is there anything I can buy from you? No? Alright. See you later. Thank you for the money. We're going to go back to our haven, because I remember... No? I have 27 more points to spend. My goodness. Alright, getting my... that go. I thought I bought two things. Oh, right. Okay, never mind. I'm just a clown. I didn't need to go to my thing for the thing. Yeah, let's go to Vonnie's laboratory. I still want to do something fun with Vonnie. Sure, why not? To end the episode off on. No. I want to make sure you're not about to run out of money, and if you have any plans for making money, I'd like to get in on them. I planned this from the first time I saw Dr. Call beat someone to death, Vonnie says, so I have money, but if you're looking to raise some quick cash, go on. It's my landlord. We've been having plumbing difficulties, and he won't fix anything. I don't have time to deal with him. Wait, no, that's not what I meant. Don't kill him. I just need someone to give him a formal written complaint from everyone in the building, but I don't want it connected directly back to me. If you could help with that, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, I'll handle your landlord problem, no problem. Just tell me where he is. Remember that you can't actually kill him. You actually try not to kill people most of the time. He's up before dawn and always goes to the same Dunkin' Donuts. All you have to do is give him the formal complaint. She hands you the letter and a piece of paper with an address and a photo and a name. You run a few minor errands that night, then head to the Dunkin' last thing. Ronnie's landlord is a chubby Korean guy in a tracksuit. His Lexus is double parked outside. Are you Ethan Kim? You ask, reaching into your shell jacket. Oh, Jesus, no, don't kill me, he says, his head falling off his stool. A few people look your way. I'm here on behalf of some of your tenants. You hand him the letter. He scowls, gets up, glares over at the other pre-dawn Duncan goers, skims the letter. What is this? He says. Which one of them wrote this, huh? Tell me, you little armament. And you reach into your shirt jacket again. What? No, wait. You've done your job. Get out of there. He's actually a really nice guy, Bonnie says the next evening. I mean, most of the time. His wife makes her own kimchi. I still have a jar if you... I guess not, but thank you. And then she hands you a check for $5,000. Before you can protest or even think, she says, I'm going to make this back in 2 weeks. Take it. I owe you. Cool. I don't know what to spend those points on. Let's just go get smart. No, that's all maxed. Sure, get some intelligence points in there. Gotta go to the Viper. Max out my charisma with... I have exactly the amount of points I need for that. You'll love to see it. And then we're gonna leave the Viper. Where to tonight, it says. And to that I say, away, my dear gamers. I thank you very much for joining me on such an endeavor. Thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember to check the description if you want to see any of the, the game, the Rik Schaffer's music, or anything like that.